if I want to make this area bluer, I just give it another coat, right? And as I put more and more coats down, transparent coats, and they dry, and I put another coat, and they dry, it'll get much more bluer, more intense. Okay. If I wanted pink, like I said before, pink is gonna be a lot of water with red, right? Because the water is what makes the paint transparent, and it just blends with the paper. There's a lot of optical, or I mean, on the paper mixing. If I want to make this blue, if I want to make this blue green, I get some yellow, and if I coat the blue, because it's transparent, it becomes green. Okay.
Mix it with the yellow.
Yes. You have to know. You guys know how to mix colors?
Yes, yes.
So I have to go through it.
I did it in pre-K.
You can mix colors. The point is that you can mix colors on the paper. You can mix colors in the palette. Okay. And another thing I would tell you as a watercolorist, try not to use the paints straight out of the pans. These are called the pans, because those colors are just meant to be mixed. They're not meant to really, like if you start using this green for all your trees, it's not really a great green, you know? It's you want to make different greens. One of the rules of watercolor is you need to know what's going to be light before you paint. Because once you darken something, you cannot make it lighter again with what I have here. Yeah, I can make this area lighter if I start like, you know, trying to erase it, but look what happens. The paper starts shredding, which brings me to another point. Watercolor is all about the control of moisture. You don't want puddles on your paper because the paper will start to warp, right? But you also need enough paint to paint, right? Enough water to paint, okay? The other technique, the third basic technique, is called dry on dry. That means your brush has to be very dry. You don't want your paint to be too wet, right? And this is mainly for like putting textures, right? Or making the texture of the paper show through, right? It's called scumbling, you know, like if you're doing scumbling. If you're doing a landscape and you want to make like a little, make it look like a lot of plants and weeds and stuff. Now I'm gonna go over some other things that you can do with watercolor. First I'm gonna do a wet sky, right? Just because I know people like seeing the wet on wet. You start spreading it, and it makes really nice clouds. You can always go back then and add more blue to an area. Okay, but what I wanted to go, so one of the techniques I wanted to show you is like creating textures with materials. You know, you can get a napkin and start patting it, you know, to create textures. Okay, it's also there when you have too much water, you dry it up, or too much paint, you dry it up. You can also do it with a sponge. You can also do it with saran wrap, or just lay it there and you let it dry for a while. And what happens is the paint goes in different areas, in different pockets, and once it's dry, you lift it and it leaves interesting patterns. Now, this is masking fluid. This has a specific purpose. It covers the paper where you don't want it to be painted. Okay, my brush into it, I start to draw with it like a branch. Okay, once it's dry, I peel it off like I did here. Okay, you peel it off where you put it, and it leaves it white. Another thing I wanted to show you actually was when you make a sky sometimes with different colors. Let's say I start with a red. And I'm doing this box. Orange. hold the paper upside down while it dries. Right?
And then they-
And the paint will start bleeding down. And what happens is that you get a very nice soft blend, right? In the sky. Now, what you want to avoid is what a lot of students do is start scooping the paint. Oh, sorry. And then they paint. And what happens is that this is super dark, very hard to change. And if they put enough on it, don't worry about getting dirty because this all washes off. It will be sticky from here till next year, the paint.
Wow.
Okay, because this is not meant for this kind of paint. I wanted to talk about salt. Artists use watercolors technique of using salt is done for the purpose of creating texture. The paint obviously will absorb
That's what he used here.
the salt, right? And once it's dry, you rub it off. Yeah, once it's dry, you rub it off. And it will leave textures in the paper, okay?
You're gonna take off the paint?
No. Technique. Let's say I have all these, this foreground here. I want to put like some flowers, plants. So I'll make some little kitty branches here and there.
Is that a brush that comes with that set? Because I find that the
No,
brushes
sometimes
that
they
come
do come with
are
a set,
horrible.
but these, well,
That's
these aren't
especially-
great brushes. Right? And a lot of artists will like get the toothbrush. Mhm.
That's a best the watercolor.
And then they
because
just like,
the bad.
they create little flowers. If I wet it more, I'll get bigger flowers. Yeah, you can create textures that
Like
way.
grass.
But like for splattering, making little small textures, Okay, so that's basically an overview of watercolor technique.
Well, hey, I learned how to paint too. Thank you, Mr. David, for teaching me how to paint. Look at my masterpiece. I wonder how much it's worth.